Hey, everybody!
Another episode.
We are back.
We are back with another episode of the Mosh and Chaz show, and this show is going to be interesting because Simon's got some stuff he wants to riff about, and I don't know anything about it. So let's go. I'm ready.
If there is no other episode that epitomizes our show, it's this: flying by the seat of our pants.
If you're wearing pants.
Well, that's for the Patreon down the line. People can pay extra money.
That's for the guy under the table to know what we're doing. Or person under the table. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, it's 2024. Person under the table.
Yes. All right, go ahead. The floor is yours.
As right off camera, Chaz just finished corrupting my 8-year-old with their shared mutual love of South Park and poop jokes.
Listen, nothing is better than Mr. Hanky Poo.
I can't believe it.
He brings Christmas joy to everyone.
No, they put him in his mouth. They put him in their mouth sometimes. Yuck.
Listen, everyone's got a fetish. What are you going to do?
Chaz, what is your favorite show of all time?
Favorite show of all time?
Yeah, I told you I was going to put you on the spot a couple times. I want this to be kind of a let's get to know Chaz and Says a little bit episode.
Favorite show of all time? Wow. I mean, I can always watch. So Popeye is my favorite all-time cartoon character.
You have the awesome figures.
I could always watch a Popeye cartoon. I mean, if that would come on, if I would see it, I would leave it on. I love Law and Order. I don't know if it would be one of my favorites. It's more background show. I don't know if I have any movie with Adam Sandler, if it comes on, I'm pretty much leaving it on.
I did not know
Madison,
that.
Happy Gilmore. So, yeah. So there would probably be something like one of those.
Okay. So, Big Daddy's my favorite Adam Sandler movie. I, too, am a huge Popeye fan. I love the Robin Williams movie. I have every song on the soundtrack. I'm so jealous. I'm so freaking jealous of that and the figures you have.
Oh, yeah. The other ones are way up there. Yeah. So this is actually from like 1976-ish. This was mine when I was like 4 or 5. I got this.
I can't believe it. And it's in great condition, dude.
The only part that's not is when one of my dogs got to his hand. But other than that, it's still in great shape. And he sits right back here on the shelf with all my figures.
Well, that's awesome. Speaking of the formative years, though, this is a question that I'm honestly, when it came to me while we were recording our previous episode, I'm like, I can't believe I have never in all the years asked Chaz this. Chaz, do you know or can you remember what match it was or what moment in wrestling made you sit as a fan and internally, mentally make the transition to this is what I want to do. Like, this is what I'm going to dedicate my life's career to. I want to be a professional wrestler so that I can make someone else feel the way these guys are making me feel right now.
Well, it's a great question and a tough one to answer.
Yeah.
Because I grew up watching.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to, the first couple of WrestleMania, not been to the first couple of WrestleManias, but when they used to do the closed circuit TV stuff, and I'd go to the Garden State racetrack when it was there, and I would watch with my buddies, and we would scream at a stupid screen where they didn't hear us. Take the speed line over to Philly to watch. To be honest with you, I always joked around with my friends that one day they would see me in that ring. So I don't know if there was a particular person or moment as a kid watching it where I would sit there and said, that's what I want to do. 100%. That's what I want to do. I always joked about it. And I would tell my buddies, hey, one day you're going to see me in that ring. So the moment, though, that I decided this is 100% what I want to do is the first time I ever stepped into the WWE ring, which was my very first match I ever had when I was 3 weeks into training.
That's wild.
at I believe it was in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And I got in that ring against Adam Baum, and I just looked around as I'm walking to the ring, and I'm just skinny, little nervous. I don't know, it was like 23-year-old, 22-year-old, whatever it was, kid. And people were yelling at me, telling me I sucked. I was going to get my ass beat. And I'm going, yeah, I know I suck. I have no idea what I'm doing. So this is going to be interesting. But I got done, and I remember stopping at a payphone and calling home and telling my mom, this is what I want to do. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. I was probably in my third or fourth year of junior college, having no idea what I was doing. And I literally, in that ring against Adam Baum, I was looking around and I had the dumbest look on my face. I'm just like here I am. And yeah, it was after that match where I was like, this is 100% what I want to do. And yeah, that's probably the moment when that has to be the first time that I went 100%. This is what I want to do.
So I will say I discovered wrestling through watching Taxi. I didn't speak English yet because I was born in South America. So watching like old Nick at Night reruns, I saw Andy Kaufman, and then discovered his feud. Blah blah blah. Watching the 1998 Highway to Hell SummerSlam, to me was I distinctly remember internally saying, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. But to put you on the spot and not to make things too mushy, I can say with complete certainty, no hesitation, 2012, me and Frankie against you and Glenn at the Fern Creek Armory for Frank Goodman, standing in the ring as you guys' music hit, and then looking out into the crowd and seeing my brother crying because you guys were literally our favorite tag team. And here I was, I've never been a body guy. I've never been the most athletic guy. But here we were. We had the loudest reaction from the crowd. That was the moment that I remember thinking this is worth it. I was 6 years in the business, 8 years in the business, something like that. And that was the moment that I remember thinking all the sacrifice, all the haters and the naysayers, and I proved them all wrong. That match against you guys, and when I got to wrestle Jerry Lawler a couple of years ago, those were the two matches that I can say, like, if I've never accomplished anything else, if anyone tries to take it away, those are the two matches where I can say, no. A, it was worth it, and B, shut up. Look what I did.
Didn't Glenn after that match tell you to shut up and you should get out of the business?
Yes.
Oh. No, that's awesome. But go back to 1998, that pay-per-view you mentioned.
Yeah.
What was it about that pay-per-view that stuck out to make you sit there watching? Because again, I watched all the time, but I never had that one moment like you just mentioned of watching and going, that's what I want to do. My thing was always like, hey, I'd like to try that. I think that would be fun to try. So it had to be me being in the ring in front of those people like that for the first time going. Because even when I went to the Monster Factory, when I went down to the school, my vision wasn't to make it to WWF. It was like, hey, I want to try this. This would be cool. This would be fun to do. Even though I'm spending $3,000 to do it, it would be something fun and cool just to try and do. The aspiration wasn't really ever at first to make it there because, again, I was just a skinny little kid who knew nothing. So, again, my perspective was always like, hey, that'd be great, the fun and try. But what was the one thing in that pay-per-view that hit you that you said, that's what I want to do full time?
I'm gonna answer that, but I want to ask you something first though, because you said when your buddies used to go watch in syndication and closed circuit that you guys would scream. Was there no time, Chaz, you can think about as a fan? I don't know, Macho Man marrying Elizabeth, or any other big moment like that. There was no moment that you remember being so filled with emotion, like it was almost overwhelming, like somebody won a match.
Actually, this is a great funny story. So my best friend and I, we're still best friends to this day. We would go over to Philly and we would try to get to the Spectrum early because we always tried buying front row seats for the next show because they were there once a month. They were in Philly every month. They were there. and we always tried, but we never did. Eventually, we finally we got front row seats. So I was so jacked up and excited because it was Macho Man versus Honky Tonk Man in a cage match, and I'm like, this is going to be amazing. And we're sitting there and we're waiting, and they're setting up the cage, and the entrance into the cage is right dead in front of us. So when you get down to the ring, the ring's here, the entrance was here. We were like right, I guess you can't see it, but if this was the ring was here, entrance came this way. We were like right there.
Okay.
So Gorilla Monsoon and whoever was doing the commentary, because they would play it on the Spectrum, was the network they would play it on in Philly. They were sitting like right here. So we were like right there, front row. And I'm like, this is going to be amazing. I'm like, Miss Elizabeth's going to be standing right here in front of us. I mean, we're in high school at this point. I'm like, this is going to be the great. That was probably the most jacked up moment I was. And we're waiting and we're waiting. They come down and Honky Tonk Man's in the ring. Macho Man's coming down. His music's playing. I'm getting goosebumps telling you the story. Macho Man, he gets in the cage. They're getting ready to close the door. Elizabeth's standing right there. And I'm just like, oh, there's Elizabeth. Like, oh, she's the hottest thing ever. And then all of a sudden, the security guy comes over and he taps my buddy on the shoulder. And he's like, you got to go. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean you got to go? He's like, you got to go. So Mike looks at me. He goes, Child, it's okay. It's no big deal. I'll just meet you right outside the door. So I'm like, I'm not leaving you in Philly by yourself, outside of the Spectrum by yourself. I'm like, what do you mean we got to go? He's like, no, it's no big deal. Just stay. He goes, go right out the exit right there where we always do. He goes, when it's over, he goes, I'll meet you. I'm like, no. So I get up and I leave with him. We get outside. I go, dude, what the fuck? I go, what happened? He goes, I was shooting spitballs with Gorilla Monsoon, and he hit him in the head, and he got kicked out.
Oh my God!
I never got to see the match.
Wow!
100% shooting spitballs with Gorilla Monsoon, and he gets kicked out.
Way to go, Mike! Jeez Louise!
Oh yeah, but it's just that's. But listen, it's a great story.
So to answer your question, the build up to the match, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Undertaker, that whole story with Kane and will he or won't he interfere, in the midst of Austin's feud with Vince McMahon, and then just all the advertising, the AC/DC video package that they did of Taker versus Austin with that song. I have it on a VHS tape. Mind you, I have every single piece of WWE programming from late 1997 until 2000 in big crates in my garage. I've got a bunch of years. It's got to have every match you've ever had from those years on there. Heat, Raw, SmackDown, Shotgun Saturday, all of it. And just the build up. Then I remember after the pay-per-view, they did a home shopping network, a QVC special, where they were selling a bunch of WWE themed stuff. They had some of the guys, and I just remember being so engulfed in all of it, the stories, the fandom, the promotional machine, that I just like it almost, even now I could like feel a lump in my throat. It like almost brought tears to my eyes how overwhelmed with my love for the product I was,
Right.
So I think that's I was like, I would love what it boils down to is I decided then and there I wanted to do it because my hope was always to make someone else feel the way I felt watching those guys,
Emotion.
Yeah.
It's all about getting emotion out of people, getting emotion out of the fans, and making them feel part of it. That's what it's all about. So the storylines were, we it's talked about all the time, the greatest era ever. But the emotion that we were able to get out of people was ridiculous back then. Yeah, even for us, like our gimmick started out as we like heavy metal, and we're listening. It's all about the music. It's about this, and we were your children. We were the children of the. I mean, we did stuff when we started with Cornette. that was our punchline. We're your children. We're the children of the 90s. Like
Yeah.
that was it. But then it turned into, people would ask us, why are you wearing skirts? Why do you have earrings? Why do you have tattoos? The answer was because we can. We're not hurting anyone. So why can't, do whatever you want to do, as long as you're not hurting anybody, no one cares what you're doing. So that got emotion. And we've talked about this before where we did an appearance and girl came up and there was two girls and they were kind of like standing off. Like they were lingering by the table, but they wouldn't come up to the table. But there was people in front of us. Like we saw them walking by a couple times. And finally, there was no one there, but they were standing there probably like 10, 15 feet away from the table. And so finally, Glenn's like, what are you girls doing? Like, are you here with somebody? Like, you keep walking around, like you're just lingering. And the one girl pushed the other one, like towards us. And she goes, we're nervous. And I was like, what are you nervous about? And they're like, we watched you guys growing up. And here it turns out there were a couple. So there were two girls, they were a couple. And the one girl said to me, she goes, wrestling brought my dad and I together. She goes, I knew I was different. My dad knew I was different, but my dad didn't understand me. She goes, but we would sit and we would watch wrestling together. She goes, that was our thing. She goes, but you guys came out with skirts on, face paint, earrings, your tattoos. She goes, and all you talked about was, if you're not hurting anyone, do whatever you want to do. No one cares. Be your own person. She goes, that helped my dad understand who I was and what I was feeling and what I was going through. She goes, so that brought us together. She goes, and seeing you guys and just meeting you in person, she goes, I just, like, she's like, I was so, like, she started crying. So I was like, she was so overwhelmed. So I ended up following her, and every now and then on Instagram, we'll like message back and forth. So she sent me a message and she goes, hey, I'm getting a new tattoo. She goes, can you do me a favor? And I'm like, sure. What do you need? She goes, I want you to write out in cursive the word hope. She goes, write it out and send it to me. I was like, okay. So I practiced it a couple of times where I was happy and it was legible because who uses cursive anymore? So I did it. And I sent it to her and she's like, thanks. And I'm like, all right. Like I never asked. I was like, okay, I don't know. She sends me back on her forearm right here. She got
in your handwriting?
In my handwriting on her arm. Because that to her was a signature. So to me, I was like, this is just crazy. But that emotion that we were able to draw out of people, but get them and then get her and her dad together, just that's what this is all about. I mean, if you're not drawing that emotion out of people, then you're not going to draw a dime in this business. And that's what the business is about. It's getting emotion out of people.
And yeah, and I mean, wow, that story like sent the hair on the back of my neck standing up. You hear anyone worth their weight in salt in the business will tell you, you can teach a nutless monkey to do the moves. You can teach a well-trained chimp to do tackle, drop down, hip toss, arm drag. But when you talk about the it factor isn't just being charismatic. The it factor is being able to throw in like an admonishing glare or, shaking your head to sell and making people feel the pain to draw that emotion. The moves are cool. The moves are fantastic. And they're a very vital part of a match. But it's the things you do in between to tell the story or to make a fan get sucked in that means so much.
Think about this. I saw this the other day about Flair. Someone had asked a question, I'd seen it online, had asked a question about Flair going, Flair did the same moves over and over. And if you really think back, his moves are the same. He does the same stuff every match. He does the same bumps, the bump off the corner where he lands on his hip. Like he does the same stuff. The thing where he hits the turnbuckle and flips over the side and walks down. It's the same stuff. But you know what makes it different is when he does it in the story. Mm-hmm. It can be the same bumps, the same chops, the same this, the same strike. It's all the same. But how he tells the story to get the emotion out of people is what makes him one of the greatest of all time, is how he tells the story with his movements and when he does it and when he doesn't do it.
And of course, what he does in between the matches, his promos, how convincing he was with being that guy, which, I mean, anyone who was around him then will tell you he was that person, but still, he was able to convey it to the viewing public.
Yeah. And people they're like, oh, well, you know, it's a work. It's a gimmick. It's a people don't understand about Ric Flair. That was real life. Like his gimmick was real life. That's how he lived his life, which is why he's had to wrestle till he was 95 years old, because he had bills to pay, because he literally blew through all his money. But it's how you draw that emotion, and how he acted drew that emotion out of people, because he acted and lived his life as if he was better than everyone else out there. And during his time, he was. 100%.
He was. No, that's awesome. Chaz, did you have a favorite tag team growing up?
I mean, I was a big fan of Demolition. They were big when I was watching. I liked Demolition. I liked Powers of Pain. I liked the big guys, the Road Warriors. I loved the Powers of Pain and Road Warrior stuff when they would like do the weightlifting competitions, and I loved that. So to be able to, you know, wrestle LOD, to wrestle Powers of Pain, and I don't know if you know this or not, we were actually supposed to wrestle Demolition, but then COVID happened and the show got canceled. Yeah, so that would have been so I liked tag teams. Those were probably, I mean, I love Ricky and Robert. I grew up watching Ricky and Robert. Obviously, you know, and then I got to work them, you know, in Smoky Mountain and WWE. So yeah, the Midnight Express, you know, I liked all of them.
That was so Frankie made fun of me because he knew what a mark for you guys I was before we started our feud. When Frankie and I got to wrestle Demolition, that was his mark out moment. And I remember standing in the ring when their music hit and looking down, and all of this, he had goosebumps up and down his entire forearm for that match. So,
so the one time for Tommy Fierro in North Jersey, he was doing he was doing a convention, and Glenn and I were on a convention, and then Tommy was putting us in like a battle royal. He was doing a convention during the day, did a show at night. Put us in some kind of battle royal. Then I saw him advertise his tag team called The Now versus the Powers of Pain. I instantly picked up the phone and I called Tommy. I go, I don't care how we do it. We got to figure it out. I go, I need to be in the ring with the Powers of Pain. We need to work them somehow. I go, if we do a singles match, I said, and then the winner gets a title match, I go, or something. And Tommy goes, all right. He goes, we'll figure it out. I'm like, all right. So Tommy sends me this photo. He goes, we're doing a 3-way. He goes, we're doing a triple threat match. He goes, and he used it Back to the Future lettering, like the logo and everything. And it said the 80s versus the 90s versus the now.
Oh.
And we were in the back, and we're talking about the match. And I've wrestled Terry Warlord. I've wrestled him in singles matches a couple times. I've known Terry for a long time. Like, I've met Barb, but I've never worked with Barb. And we're in the back. We're talking about the match. And Barb's like, so Chaz, he's like, you and I will start. And I'm like, cool. He goes, so here's what I want to do. We're going to take in a headlock and push off and take a bump. And I'm like, all right, so I'm going to shoot you off. You're going to shoot me off, and then I'm going to hit you, and I'm going to bump. He's like, no, I'm going to bump. I go, you're bumping for me? He's like, yeah. He goes, and then he's like going on with the spot, and he's like, yeah, and then you give me like a neck breaker. And I'm like, you're taking another bump for me? And he's like, yeah. And Terry grabs my hand, Warlord grabs my hand, he goes, 15-year-old Chaz needs to calm down and just listen right now. I went, okay. So we literally got in the ring, and I stopped and I went to lock up. I have it on video. And I stopped and I looked down like this, and I was just covered in goosebumps. And then we get in the match, and like he takes 2 bumps for me, and then I take a bump for him. And Glenn goes, "Well," he goes, "you're winning 2-1 over the Barbarian right now." And I yell at him, "Rick, shut up! He can hear you." Like, stop! He can hear you. But it was classic. And then I was talking to Terry, and I was like, "Yeah, Terry," I said, work that singles match. And Terry told me a great story he shared. I know we're getting close on time, but he shared this story with me, which I thought was unbelievable. I remember I said, we wrestled that singles match at FAU in Boca. And he's like, right. He's like, yes. He goes, I remember. He goes, the craziest part about that match is? And I was like, I said, the part that you pressed me and I flew up out of your hands and literally went 10 feet in the air. He goes, no. He goes, my grandmother had never, ever seen me work. She never saw me wrestle live. That was the first time she ever saw me wrestle live. He goes, so I was a little pumped up. I go, a little? He literally went to press me. And my hands, I didn't post, or I didn't get a chance to post because literally he went up and I had to fly a good foot in the air. And then he caught me and brought me back down and just kept pressing me. I wasn't posting or anything. I'm like, you were way jacked up.
Dude, what year was that?
That was 2000. It had to be like 2004 or 5-ish.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that. 5 or 6, something like that. Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing.
It was something like that.
Wrestling is magic. I always say wrestling is magic.
It is. It's magic if you get in there with the right. You can make magic happen if you're in there with the right person at the right time with the right chemistry, and you're both there for the same reason.
Yep.
Just to make it magical.
No egos.
Yes. No
egos. When I wrestled Lawler, right before our match started, Frank Goodman came up and said, Simon, I need a quick 30-second promo. So I went and did my thing. King was standing right there. So I got to cut a promo with about Jerry Lawler with him right behind the camera. I do it, one take, cut. King puts his hand on my shoulder and goes, you remind me so much of Andy. Mind you, I've got a picture of Andy Kaufman in my wallet that I've had since 7th grade in my wallet. So I tear up. We go out. King and I just do gaga for like 10 minutes. Finally, he gets me in the ring. We lock up and I start almost crying. Like, I was so overcome with emotion. We lock up and King just goes, stay with me, kid. You got him. And it was just, I remember I called you before that match to ask you for like your input and what you were my person. You were the person I called for advice and input, man.
It's all good stuff. It's all fun. I mean, it's fun. It's lifetime of memories, and then we get to sit here and bullshit about it. So, I mean, yeah.
And like I've said before, there's people like you that will carry on long after you shed your mortal coil, dude. Like long after you're gone, the stuff that you've accomplished, the memories that you've made for people will carry.
You're going to make me blush.
It's true. It's true. Well, while Chaz is blushing, we want to say get your Junior Achievement exclusive Chaz t-shirt, everybody. It also enters you into a running for an autographed Mattel Elite 2-pack of the freaking Headbangers. You can't buy the autographed version, and you cannot buy that shirt anywhere else other than by heading down there. JuniorAchievementSouthFlorida.org. Vote for Chaz.
Vote for me. I appreciate it. Thanks again for another great episode, and we'll see you when we see you.
Wrestling is magic, everybody. We'll catch you next time.